Meeting, January 11th, 2017, Public Works to order. First thing, I just want to make an introductory comment on how we look at some of our information here. We've talked last year and agreed after our retreat to have 7 steps of planning, basically 7 questions like who, what, when, where, why, how, and what for. So when we get things that come to us from any venue, that we know at least we're going to ask questions in these areas perhaps, and that if we all know that's where we will be looking, then there's no surprises as to the questions we might pose, and might help us just cover the issues more completely. So we've talked about that, just that the staff would get a memo on that, and we'd have a clarification on that. So a way of operating on issues. Okay, as far as the agenda, are we set? Is there any additions or changes to that?
Nope.
Okay, good. First item on the agenda then, ATVs and golf carts. Kyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think at our last council meeting, we had looked over a couple draft resolutions regarding the use of ATV and golf carts. And then from that discussion, I think we tabled any decisions on the ordinances until this committee meeting for further discussion. I believe Councilmember Arneson had asked if I would check in with a couple other communities in regards to what they allow and don't allow in regards to ATVs and golf carts. So I guess to start off the discussion, I'll just give you a brief synopsis of what I found in other cities. The city of Detroit Lakes, I could not find anything that allowed the operation of ATVs on city streets. However, they do have an ordinance that allows for the operation of golf carts. There's a permitting process. There's some requirements of the golf carts, and pretty much allowed in any neighborhood. It's not just allowed Detroit Lakes or golf course is actually outside of the city limits, so that's what I found there. The city of Alexandria, they have 2 different ordinances, one pertaining to golf carts, one pertaining to ATVs. Basically, they do allow the operation of both within their city. Golf carts, again, are able to operate pretty much anywhere in the city. They have a list of 35 streets where a golf cart cannot be operated. ATVs are able to be operated on most streets. There was some exclusions to sidewalks, boulevards, school grounds, park property, etc. And then the last one was the city of Moorhead. This one I'm not 100% clear on. Could not find anything on the operation of golf carts. ATVs, Class 2 ATVs were allowed on all streets. Class 1 ATVs, their ordinance, at least I had trouble kind of reading through to see if they were allowed or not allowed. They are at least allowed to move snow from a driveway, parking lot, sidewalk, or boulevard. With the rest, and I didn't have a chance to talk to the chief in Moorhead to get some clarification, but the Class 2 ATVs are allowed in Moorhead, and Class 1s are allowed at least for snow removal. The last thing that I will say in regards to all the cities that I reached out and contacted is all are also in the process of looking at potentially changing their ordinances. So, and then Breckenridge, I'm sorry, I know Mr. Rachels had brought up Breckenridge. I did talk to the chief there. They do allow operation of both. However, they said that it's not allowed on all streets. So that's kind of the background of what I was able to find. I guess I would throw it back to you for your thoughts or discussion as to how we want to proceed from this point forward.
Thank you. Kyle, comments? Yes.
I believe that we should move ahead with them in Woodland Heights. I don't want to see golf carts in our city or ATVs. The UTVs are already, is that a class 2? Is that the UTV?
Class 2 is yeah, it's considered a side-by-side.
Right, okay. And I think that, I believe the other towns are going to move towards that also. The golf carts probably be later on. But I just think we should just stick with the, what we do at the Pebble Hills and Woodland Heights and leave it alone with just those two things and not this whole city. I don't want to see that happen.
Would you like to make that a move that we recommend that to council?
Sure, yes.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
Any more discussion on that particular item? And maybe we could clarify again just exactly what, Lynn, did you capture that, the essence of that? Could you read what you have?
There would be a motion second to allow residents of Woodland Heights to use ATVs and golf carts.
Okay.
And this be going for a first reading at the council meeting on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I would just, if I could clarify, I believe it's the essence of what Scott was saying. I believe the draft ordinances that were proposed at the meeting is what we are looking to
Yes,
approve.
exactly.
The way
Right.
that they were written.
I'm going to make sure there are no adjustments to that or anything else.
I do got one question though. Are there age limits even in that area for the,
Yes, you have to be a licensed operator.
Okay.
Those fall under the DNR rules, so you have to either have a valid driver's license. Even if you're in an age classification that would be below having a Minnesota driver's license, you have to have an adult present. So I don't have any, I think that what is in state statute or the DNR regulations sufficiently cover age of operation.
okay.
Yes, Jim.
Mr. Chairman, are you speaking both ATVs and golf carts, or just ATVs?
I would have to look, I'm speaking specifically towards ATVs, and I don't have a full copy of our ordinance on the golf carts. If it says that you have to be a licensed operator. If not, we can certainly add that provision that for the golf carts that you have to have a valid operator's license operated upon a public roadway.
Thanks for the question on that.
You're on one.
Yeah.
Just note, I mean, obviously, the one gentleman that was at the meeting that was opposed to, because of use of these types of vehicles that aren't respectfully used, this doesn't preclude that. I mean, obviously, they still need to abide by all the road regulations as you had announced. So, I mean, I think it needs to be clear that we're not,
Yeah, absolutely. You still have to abide by all traffic laws, exhibition driving, unreasonable acceleration, loud muffler, all those things would still be a prohibited act. And I think the scope in which we've narrowed their use is sufficient so that we're not having recreational use of the vehicles in these areas.
Your Honor, if I may, so I have one of the, in that ordinance that we had come before the council, we talked about a permitting application process. Did that include in the ordinance, or was that just discussion on if we should or shouldn't?
No, in 5.32, which is all-terrain vehicles, it does have a permit required.
Okay.
And that is something that is outlined in the state statute. And I think it gives us the ability to issue the permit for a period not to exceed 3 years, and it gives us the authority to revoke it.
Thanks, Chief.
Any other questions, comments in the audience on that? Okay. You ready to vote? Yes, sir. Okay, all in favor of that first reading as is, as was read, and going forward with that, recommending that to the council, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So motion is unanimous. We move that forward. Requested action on Ward 2, Precinct 3.
Do you want it on the consent agenda, or we just put it toward the?
It's gonna
Be an
under
ordinance.
It's already set up, I think, yeah.
Okay, so on this next issue, after we sent the annexation paperwork to the state with Woodland Heights back in November, we received notice there's a discrepancy that we, the council, to look at with the precinct boundaries. So prior to the annexation, residents of the Woodland Heights neighborhood voted in Fergus Falls Township, therefore voted for the District 3 County Commissioner. Residents of the city mostly vote for County Commissioner District 5. So the Secretary of State contacted the city and the county about these district lines. Now, if the area consisted of 50 voters or fewer, they could just simply incorporate them into it without any changes. However, there's about 185 registered voters in that neighborhood, so we need to look at other options. So we sat down with the state, or the county auditor's office, and I consulted the state and made the recommendation that we deal with this issue by establishing Ward 2 Precinct 3, which would be solely made up of the residents of the Woodland Heights neighborhood. Our plan would be to incorporate this new precinct into Ward 2 and continue using the National Guard Armory as a polling place. The only change it would really consist of would be if there's a county commissioner race on the ballot, and they do have primary elections for county commissioners, so it may be primary, maybe only general, depending on the outcome of who registers to run for those offices. They would get a different ballot than the people in the first precinct. We've talked to the county and made accommodations for equipment and personnel. It would probably require just having another judge or so. So nothing really big there. We would do this with a new precinct in 2018 and 2020 for the elections, or any special elections that would occur in that time. And after 2020, after the census is conducted, the city, along with the state, the county, everybody redistricts at that time. And redistricting, that's a process that we go through. Me as elections administrator, GIS, Gordon with community development, we go through and we just look at the number of registered voters, where the polling places are, and try to equally balance out the number of voters in each ward. The reason that we have a little urgency in doing this now, because again, residents that were in Woodland Heights voted at the township elections are coming up in March. So what the recommendation from the county was, is that we have this resolution, which you have a copy of in your agenda packet, that we pass the resolution, establish this district now, so that residents that live in Woodland Heights aren't voting at the township election here in 2017, and then again at the city. So it would cut off that voting. It's a very clear time that the voting is done there. So the action I'm requesting today is a recommendation to the council to consider adopting the resolution that's here that would create the Ward 2 Precinct 3 for the residents of the Woodland Heights neighborhood. And upon favorable consideration by the full council, we send the resolution to the state and the county, and then we update the records prior to the township elections. So it's pretty clear we have no other options at this point. So, but it is going to be a little bit confusing for the residents. The county takes care, once the voting registration polls are updated, they take care of notifying each resident. So the city would really have nothing to do there.
And am I clear, Lynn, that it's 2020 that the redistribution?
2020, after the census is completed.
Right.
We would have an election in November, and then after that, we would, early 2021, after the census is completed, we would go through the redistricting portion again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my only concern was that we have a large, unprecedented number of people coming in at once to one ward, and, I'm wondering,
Well, it's not really going into, it's going into the ward, but it's making their own precinct, so it's gonna be a very small, we can combine precincts, so we would have to get an extra voting machine, that type of thing. It would just be another set of ballots, so if they register under a separate book as a Woodland Heights resident, or I shouldn't say that, a Precinct 3 resident, they would get a different ballot if there's a change, if there's a county commissioner race on that ballot.
any
No?
comments? It looks like we have very little choice on that.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
All right, we'll recommend that.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Carries. You want that
Consent, I would think.
consent agenda? Thank you. Okay, item number 3, city lobbyist contract. Andrew Bremseth.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. We are just continuing the discussion from last Tuesday's city council meeting regarding who we want to use for a lobbyist in the 2017 calendar year. At Tuesday's meeting, you directed us to get another proposal from Mr. Joel Carlson regarding the library legislation. We submitted that yesterday afternoon to the council, and he agreed to do that for an additional $10,000. So if we look at these consulting agreements, as you recall, the agreement for Joel Carlson on the RTC project was $32,000. Adding that $10,000 brings his yearly total up to $42,000. He did want me to verify that his proposal is the entire year rather than just during the session, so that would include some of that work with that bonding request that we talked about later on down the road as we approach that October deadline. And then looking at the other proposal that was submitted by Nancy Hilden, that's a 2-part proposal. You can go with either or both of those. For part 1, which is during the legislative session, that was $25,000. And then part 2, which is during the interim session, so working on that bonding proposal, if that's the direction we go, was $21,000. So if you were to go with both parts, that'd be a $46,000 contract. You know, at this time, staff has a good working relationship with Joel Carlson, and we see no reason to not continue working with him on these projects that he's had a history with and a good success with. Joel is the lobbyist we used on the arena sales tax legislation project, so he has the history of getting that approval, and he's got a deep knowledge of the RTC project. So that's the recommendation from staff, is to hire Joel Carlson as our lobbyist for 2017.
Okay, comments, questions?
I think with that being said, what you said about Joel, I mean, Joel's been involved in these processes since RTC started up, and of course the ice arena sales tax. But Nancy now has been involved with some stuff that Rod we've done for the dairy process. And when it comes down to, I think, different venues, we should look at her. But I'm gonna make the motion to move ahead with Joel right now, but not to put her off on other venues of something we need for a lobbyist on the road.
Is there a second to that?
I second that.
Okay.
I just
Brett,
had
second?
a
Yeah.
comment too, I think, to what Mr. Rachel said. I think it's important to note that, you know, you had touched on earlier about, you know, who, what, when, why. I think the process for future lobbyists, you know, Joel's been good and he's been laying the groundwork on a lot of this, but I think it's important for us as a council to look on certain projects and look not against Joel, but there's other lobbyists out there that might have a little more influential impact. So I agree with Mr. Rachels. It's time that is changing, and down the road we might look to use somebody else, but for now I think it makes a lot of sense to stick with Joel.
Mr. Chair, I agree with Justin. If we're going to look at a project and we don't feel Joel's the guy, I think the right move is to go out for proposals and just cast a far and wide net and see what options are out there. But I agree. Obviously Ms. Hilden has done a good job on getting grant money for the dairy property. So if we move in that direction, we certainly wouldn't be opposed to that. But at this time, with these projects, I think we're moving in the right direction.
As far as just clarification, we've had 2 things mentioned. One has been the lobbying that originally Joel has been involved with at the Kirkbride. The second one is the library. I'm expecting we should separate this into 2 different actions because they're 2 different contracts. We have a separate contract from Joel for one and the other. We act on each one individually, so it's clean.
Either way, you could act either way. We're just making recommendations at this point to move forward.
Right, right.
However you guys want to do it.
I think at the council, if I may, Your Honor, I think at the council is maybe where we would need to invoke 2 different. Yeah, but here I think we can.
I was going to say, it's not the full council decide if we want to split them up or not. We just want to make a recommendation to go with him.
Sure, I just want to note that, yeah, we have to clean it up eventually. Second thing it'd be to note is, I've had people speak to me about our process of engaging lobbyists, that they wonder, since we do RFPs and we take bids and do things on other projects, why we shouldn't be more concerned about getting a width. And I think you alluded to it, Scott, eventually, that if there are people that can do a better job in a certain area, we should look at that.
Absolutely.
The RFP process is one that I think is important, and so I just wanted to note that. The other thing I think that should be considered in this motion, before we vote on it, is that one lobbyist has suggested that we take just during the session, all right, and then and then after the session, split it up. And I know Joel has provided a full year, which I'm not criticizing. I'm only saying at this point, if we were to take or ask for a clarification from Joel if he would do the session, we would have an RFP ready after that, and we will know more about what we are going to do after this session. It's not a done deal, as Joel Carlson noted, earlier. He thought we were going to get something, and then we didn't quite get it. Didn't work out the way we thought. So we are going to know after the session. I just want to let everyone be aware of that my opposition to taking the whole meal deal at once is that we don't know what's going to happen yet in that session, what we're going to get. I would be more comfortable taking a session, that is taking the session and then after asking Joel for, to break his up. And then we know what to analyze. So in my case, I may vote no simply out of the idea of being informed as to what we're getting. So we're making good with taxpayer money. We're using it specifically for what we need, and we know exactly what we're going after when we hire a lobbyist. But that being said, any other comments?
I just got one for Mr. Brimseth. Would we, moving ahead, obviously this is 2 weeks until the council, would that be time to talk with Joel and see if he would do a two-piece meal deal?
Well, council's on Tuesday, so we're less than a week from there, but
That's right.
we could, he could split that up in terms of how he feels the workload would be. I can ask him for that if that's the direction of the committee, but he had, I guess he had the option to submit it that way in the first place and chose not to.
Okay.
Yep.
Clarification, you said in the first place he divided them up, or just was it all one lump sum, wasn't it?
Joel's was all one lump, yeah.
Is that right?
And it remains that way.
Let's just move it, recommendation to go with Joel, and then let's let the council decide what they want to do with the splitting this up or not. And you can probably try to ask him and see what he says.
No, I think, Mr. Chair, if I may, I think what Councilmember Speedall is looking at is splitting up the RTC proposal into session and then interim session,
Right.
like Ms. Hilden's. I think what you're talking about is splitting up the library from the RTC.
No.
So, but if we want him to split up a price for the RTC, we have to ask him before
Okay.
we can't dictate those terms without him submitting a
Okay, fair enough.
proposal to that effect.
So we're how many days out from that option of the council looking at that?
6 days.
Yeah.
3 business days?
Are those 6 days crucial? We do a lot of things rush. I don't think that rush here is necessarily better. I don't think we're gaining anything by rushing it. 6 days isn't going to make or break that lobbying effort right now, I don't think. But, so I guess I'm suggesting that we would amend that and allow for Joel to submit a proposal so we could look at that at time of council, if he's willing. If not, the council can deal with it as they want.
That's what I think.
Is that fair enough?
Let the council deal with it,
Which means we'd ask Joel.
which means
We have to get a request from Joel.
Which means we move on to the motion to move ahead, take Joel, and then once we get to the council could say, yes, certainly, let's split it up or not split it up, or however. I think we just need to move ahead with Joel right now, and with the recommendation to go with Joel, and what we do with that when we get to the council will be the next one.
Well,
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
is this committee directing me to ask Joel Carlson to provide a two-part proposal on the RTC? I guess that's the question that I have. Is
That's
that
what I
the
heard
direction of the
from
committee?
Councilman Arneson.
Well, we already have a motion on the floor
Right.
about.
We can amend it, or we can vote it up or down, and then we have to decide if we're going to ask Joel for another proposal. Doesn't mean we don't take one. It just means we have the option. Councilman Rachel, do you understand what we're saying? We're not
Oh, yeah,
saying,
I'm just trying to think out just
not saying against it, it's just
where we're going
saying
with this.
we
whole-
need the option before we pass it on to the council. We can't just vote it up and then we haven't acted. So the council needs to know if they're going to vote on it, and we'd have to ask this week.
I think we just leave it alone. I don't want to change it. I want to leave it. Just go with Joel. And if the council wants to change the recommendation once we get to the council, let them change it, not us. Let's just move on, just see what it does.
Any other comments? You want to?
No, we've been dealing with him for how long? He knows us, and he knows the projects we're working on, and we've got a couple big items going right now, and it's like changing them midstream just doesn't seem like a good thing to do. stick with somebody we've been working with for a few years, and I don't think we've had any problems with him.
Right, and this is not about problems, this is about the session. Remember, my objections are not about Mr. Carlson. It's about knowing what we're hiring and why we're hiring someone. So just want to make that clear. I'm not against Mr. Carlson as a lobbyist. I'm just saying the process would be cleaner and we get more for our money if we waited until we knew exactly what we're getting from the legislature. Okay, so, ready to vote? All in favor, as it's been proposed, to engage Mr. Carlson, and I believe that's for both, for library and, right? We're saying we're going to do it as a lump?
Yep.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. So it carries and recommended to the council.
No, we,
You want that on the regular agenda?
yeah, I do, because we'll have to talk about it again, so I mean, let's let the council, if they want to divide it up then, that's fine, but I just think we just need to move ahead of Joel, and he knows where we're at.
Okay, so that won't be on the consent agenda then?
No.
Okay.
No.
Rest of you all right with that? Okay. Good. Charter Commission membership, number 4. Andrew.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Before you, you have a memo from City Attorney Rolf Nicklemo explaining the process to reappoint the Charter Commission. Currently, there's 14 members that will be on, or that are on the Charter Commission. And the way that the Charter Commission is appointed is having that commission make recommendations, having the City Council make recommendations, and then both of those sets of recommendations get sent over to the district court for the judge to make the final appointment or determination on who should be on the Charter Commission. Generally, or forever, it's been that the City Council has allowed the Charter Commission to make those recommendations, and then the City Council has unanimously agreed to those recommendations, sending a uniform set of recommendations to the court, more or less to make the court's job easier, because the court could ultimately appoint whoever they want to that commission, whether they follow the list or not. And the Charter Commission has met on September 13th of last year, and they've made the following recommendations. They've staggered the 2-term expiration dates, with the first group of names expiring December 31st of 2018. That's Mr. Chuck Hansen, Mr. Mark Hovland, Maury Kirschner, David Nicklemo, Tyndall Rund, Richard Ettinger, and Dick Young. And then the other terms would expire on December 31st of 2020, so those would be the 4 years. Tim Brennan, who would be the only new member on the commission, replacing Bob Block. Brad Howland, Mary Jo Ingolstead, Gary Nelson, Virginia Portman, Daryl Senstelen, and Joellen Thacker. So the recommended action today is to recommend to the council to adopt the enclosed resolution appointing the members to the Charter Commission. After the council passes that resolution, that gets sent on to the court for that appointment.
Okay, just to get it on the docket, does somebody want to make that, move that we,
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
okay, is there a second?
Sure.
Okay, moved and seconded, let's have a discussion on that. First, I want to ask if I could, if council wouldn't mind, are there any members of the elected representatives of the Charter Commission in attendance today to speak on behalf of this, or up or down? Would you like to speak to this?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Brad Howland, a resident of 1814 South Court Street in Fergus Falls, and a member of the Charter Commission. What you have before you on your desk is the wishes of the Charter Commission. You have 14 very loyal members that have spent many hours with, going word by word with either your core book that's on the floor behind your desk, or in the drawer, or in your offices at home. They're basically the guidelines of the city. So that's really what I have to say, unless you have any questions of us.
Are there any questions?
Not for me.
I had one. We had a motion, I noticed in the minutes of the Charter Commission, that there would be a opportunity to publicly explain more about the Charter Commission, and that would be done by the reigning officers at this point, President, Vice President, and Secretary.
I'm sure that.
That was made in September of 2016. Do you remember that?
If you'll notice those minutes,
Right.
Brad Howland had an unexcused absence. I was hunting in South Dakota, so I was not at that meeting, but I'm sure if it was discussed, Mr. Nelson? you
It's
remember?
just in the minutes.
All we're trying to do is get more people who met and nobody shows up, and we're trying to say, hey, you know, this is your chance to come in and talk and change things or make some suggestions besides you people. Come in, and we're just trying to be more, you know, open or whatever, to just to say, hey, we're here, come on in. That's all it was. We're just trying to
Yeah.
get more interest. So
And I commend you for that. I think it's a great, great thing to do. I think people don't understand necessarily the work of the Charter Commission, et cetera. And so I realized, I was just going to ask if it had been done. It was voted on in September, and I'm assuming it hasn't yet happened, to have the media, newspaper, you had mentioned in the motion, media and newspaper, and talk about what you do and just publicize it more. Has there been a date set, you know, to do that? Would you be aware of that by any chance?
well, there really isn't anything to meet on unless you people come up with something you want changed or the public does. We don't meet just for the heck of it. We usually meet, and it's in the charter that we have to meet once a year. If there isn't any other interest, there's no need to meet. Things that the charter evidently is working the way it's supposed to.
No, that wasn't my question. It was your motion from the committee that you were going to publicize it. I'm just wondering if that,
No, that has not been done.
thank you, that's all, yeah. Just a little background, and you can sit down if you want. Thank you, Brett. A couple of things that I think we should consider as we look at this. Number one, the website does give direction to us as a council. That is on our city website. This is what it says about our role at this point. The Charter Commission's function is to continue to study the local charter and local government. The commission is required by law to meet at least once each calendar year. Members are recommended by the Fergus Falls City Council, and successful applicants will be referred by resolution to the Chief Judge of the 7th Judicial District for appointment to the Charter Commission. Applicants should provide a brief statement, resume and brief statement as to why they believe they are qualified and what qualifications they possess that would make them a good candidate to serve on the Charter Commission. Any interested party should send their resume together with their qualifications to Lynn Olson, Assistant to the City Administrator. So aside from what has been called the historical precedent, we do have a direction on our city website of how we are to handle this. That may be right or wrong, but that's what we are. That's what I'm going by, what it says on our city website. And because this was established, you know, under a Minnesota statute 41005, which basically says on the expiration of each term, the chief judge shall appoint new commission members. I don't know what that means exactly, but it says they should appoint new commission members. Maybe renewing is part of that. If the chief judge fails to appoint a new commission within 30 days, then the governing body of the city shall appoint new commission members, unless within that 30-day period the judge indicates in writing an intention to appoint new members. It does fall to us as a council, as I am looking at this from the city website and from the statute, that we should be recommending, all right? And the other part of this is that there have been people that have indicated an interest in serving on the Charter Commission. So I feel it is good governance for us to welcome people, that is, under the provision that people who are seeking either reinstatement on the Charter Commission or new members would present a brief resume and a statement of why they're qualified, as it says on the city site. And that way the council, there's an even playing field. We all know why you want to serve, you know, and it allows new people to come in. Otherwise, we don't have any means of renewing or having new people come on that commission. So that is my suggestion to us as we discuss it, that we should allow the time for new members to apply and for those who are coming on. Tim Brennan was suggested to come on in place of Bob Block. And basically, all those who are applying, we should see a statement of their resume and why they want to serve. I think that's fair, it's equitable for everybody. And that's what I would like to see us make sure we include that in our understanding of what we do here or what we suggest to the council.
I got a question.
Yep.
So how many people have applied other than Tim? Can anybody answer that? Did you have that, Lynn?
Well, it's that list of all the members.
I mean, they've all the members have applied. Was anybody new applied besides what's on that list? So I guess what I'm,
No.
okay.
There's been a couple people who've shown interest.
But they've not applied.
No one else has gone through the formal process of submitting your resume of that type, no.
I know of a couple people who have sought to inquire, which I think we should allow time for,
So my follow-up question is, where are we at? I don't know if the mayor's, I thought the mayor would be the one appointing this, but I guess I'm wrong on that.
No, the recommendation comes from the Charter Commission, and I think that, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, but if people submit applications and go through that process, I think Lynn keeps those applications on file when the Charter Commission has a vacancy, they look at the people that are interested. I mean, the Charter Commission has worked for the past, 14 years since it's been established. It's been appointed by past councils. I think I would caution the current council to go in there. I mean, it is kind of, there is a separation of powers for this council to go in and appoint people that they feel should be on the Charter Commission. I think is a little bit, can be a little bit dangerous. If you look at that list of people on the Charter Commission, at least again, in my opinion, we have a nice balance of people that serve that Charter Commission well for a long period of time. So I think you just go and randomly put new people that this council wants to put on there is a little bit dangerous, but that's my opinion.
how does that, can I ask a question of you, Mr. Mayor? How does that square with the charter self-appointing? That is, if we don't look at new members and we just take that renewal self-appointment, isn't that a bit awkward to have a commission that self-appoints?
I think it ultimately goes to the council to make that recommendation to the judge. I think we would hear if something weren't working on the commission, just like other commissions. I made the appointments to the planning commission. If there was someone or something that wasn't working on the planning commission, I think we would hear about that and have the opportunity to appoint that. I think what you're referring to on the website says that if we take applications of people, and like I said, there have been a couple people who've shown interest, and that's great. Let's get them in the pool of candidates, and as openings available in the future, pass it on to the Charter Commission to make those appointments. And I certainly don't think that we're gonna take that right of the council to make those appointments, to take those appointments away. However, if there's not a problem with that commission and they are doing the job that we've asked them to do for quite some time, and they've put a lot of time and energy. Gary mentioned that they meet once a year, but they've spent countless hours over the last several years going through that charter line by line. And I haven't heard any complaints from people. To your point, Rod, maybe the Charter Commission could come to the city council and present a little bit more about what the Charter Commission does, so the public knows that if they have something they want to talk to the Charter Commission about, there's an avenue to do that. But anyway, that's just,
Rod?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, 2 years, was it, how many years ago, Lynn, maybe I can ask you, was when we went through the Charter Commission, went through our charter, I mean, that was about a year. Yeah, and that was there's a good balance of people in that. I mean, when we went through that, there was a lot of differences and a lot of, on that council at that time, and it was a good balance. So that's where I'm trying to figure out where you're coming from. If we've got applicants coming in, yes, we should look at them. If we don't have any, I guess, where are we at on this?
Yeah, I guess my point would be that I think our wisest move at this point is simply to postpone this until the council meeting, not to make a recommendation, and wait to see if those applicants actually come forward with an application that have said they're interested, and then council's gonna deal with it anyhow. Yeah. So that'd be my recommendation for a motion that we just postpone until the council can look at it.
Well, has there been a timeline? I mean, like when we went to go in for city council, we had a timeline to put in our, bit. I mean, shouldn't there be something like that here? I mean, she's already said that, there's been very few people who have applied. They've showed interest. I mean, if they really wanted to do it, they would have went through the process and gotten their name in for consideration. I mean, if we start appointing people, Scott may have something that he's got his little project, or I have my project, and we start appointing people, it kind of looks like we're putting in people that are in line with what we want. And then that comes across as a bad thing also.
I would just clarify, we don't appoint, we simply suggest to the judge who appoints. That's how the statute reads. The second thing I'd ask is, has there been a public announcement that the Charter Commission term renewal time is up, allowing people to apply? Has there been anything on our city site, a tickler, whatever? Has that occurred?
Rod, I'm gonna go back to Richard Ettinger is probably the newest member besides Tim now. And he just communicated.
Excuse me, I had a question, that's a serious question, and I just want to ask from the city side, has there been announcement that this commission now is up for renewal and publicly made so people have a chance?
It's part of the annual meeting that it's one of the agenda items that they address is the membership at the annual meeting, from what I understand. And if there's anyone that has expressed interest in the past 2 years, they usually let me know. And then if there's names that they want to consider, we just pass those names on to the Charter Commission. We did have someone that stepped down, and Tim Brennan's name was someone that was recommended to sit in there, was submitted to the Charter Commission. They made that recommendation. So when we had the annual meeting posting with the agenda, to answer your question, yes, they had it open for when their agenda is posted, that memberships are being considered at that point. Only, other than Tim Brennan, the only people that applied or expressed interest are the ones that are current members.
So to the question, the Charter Commission knew that they were having a meeting?
They have an annual meeting
Right,
every year.
right.
Yes.
And my question was just if the public is able to have a chance to give input or to, and I suppose if they seek it out, they can.
Right.
But we haven't really publicized it.
That's why I was if you don't mind. Richard Ettinger contacted me about what he could do and wanted to be on it, and I said, put your name in the hat, and somebody went off, I don't know who went off at that time, but he got in, so it's just a matter of, if they ask, you can, I don't think we've turned anybody down who's asked, the way it sounds, because I mean, sounds like there'll be some turnover over the next few years, but it's, we publicly put it in the paper, no, I don't think we've done that. And I don't think they have, but if that's something we want to look at, but I don't think there's everybody waiting in the woods unless you know somebody right now that wants to go on there, and I don't know what to say to that.
Well, back to my suggestion, there's no rush for us to make a recommendation. If nominees come forward, if someone applies before the council meeting, we can consider that. Otherwise, it's a moot point, right? Doesn't matter.
Sounds good to me.
Is that,
I'll make that motion, Your Honor.
okay?
We already have a motion on the floor.
Sorry. We have the motion on the, that was suggested and in the agenda. So the recommendation to adopt resolution appointing the members, we would have to vote that down and then wait on if we were going to introduce another motion.
Unless Justin wants to amend the motion and Scott would agree to the amendment.
Okay, yeah, we could do that.
I'll amend the motion to defer this until Tuesday night's meeting.
And I'll accept that amendment.
Great. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
One
Thank you.
thing I just, point of clarification on all, I mean, there's a lot of committees that we have at this level. And I don't know where the differentiation is between the Charter Commission and the other committee levels, but we don't, to my knowledge, we don't ever post somebody coming on or off for public to show an interest. I mean, I think, I understand where you're coming from, Rod, but I also think the city's not in a position, I mean, we don't go and post everything, do
We
we?
do have a volunteer application on the website, and Charter Commission is one of the things people can express interest in. Again, the only two people I've seen have submitted that lately, in the last few years, is Tim Brennan and Richard Ettinger, and they both kind of expressed their interest in the Charter Commission.
Right, where I'm coming from is, I read the statute, just so you know.
Yep.
And the statute says that since we already, now we're in a late period, that is, they've expired at the end of the year. We're in that period, that statute says that after this 30-day period, that the governing body of the city shall appoint new commission members. So you're welcome to go to the statute, anybody, and look up the statute. All I'm trying to do is keep us in line with what the Minnesota statutes allow on the Charter Commission. It's unlike any other thing we appoint as a city. It's not like the park board or anything else. So clarifying that is all I'm trying to do. Yep.
But I think what you're saying too is the charter, or the Charter Commission does recommend you, and you have to vote up there. It doesn't mean, I guess I'm like the mayor here, I'm concerned about the balance of power, and all of a sudden, we get a group that wants to change the whole charter, they get their groupies in there, and all of a sudden, things change for the better or the worse. Right now, there's checks and balances that really work well. We're open at the meetings, and there's non-agreements there all the time either, what's gonna be passed and not passed, so, and then when it comes to you, you can say yes or no too, so there is some steps there, but I think what that thing is telling you is, yeah, when you presented or it was presented to you, then you have the right to present it, or you can change it at that time too, but you are doing what it says you do.
Thank you, exactly. And I remember I just read from the city website and the Minnesota Charter. So that's what we're looking at. All right, we're all set? Any other comments?
Is that going to
Next.
full council or the consent? If we don't hear anything, it's going to consent.
If you want discussion on it, you probably would want to put it on the consent.
We have to vote on that.
I think you're right.
Yeah, discussion, so
Right.
that's-
I think it's got to go to the council.
Council, I'm sorry. You're right, I was thinking of the holding off thing.
Thank you.
Bless
All
you.
right, U.S. Aquatics proposal number 5. Justin.
All right, so you guys should have a proposal in front of you that was drafted by U.S. Aquatics. Just to give a little background, there was a group in town, I don't remember, Gordon maybe could help me out on dates, but there was quite a few members, a part of a group looking at some sort of an aquatic center pool years ago, and there's been some interest again. And so kind of an informal group has gotten together to just have some discussion around that. From that discussion, we've entertained, we got a couple of proposals. The one in front of you see is the one that U.S. Aquatics presented, Tom Schaefer. And it is our understanding that there's some funds set aside at the city for a feasibility study. And this basically would be to have an expert come in and do a feasibility study of our city, give us some desired locations that would work. And there's quite a few things in detail. I'm not going to go through every specific one. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at them. It could be a 2-part proposal if we want it, and at the end of the day, give us some direction on a needs analysis and a community survey for an opportunity for community members to solicit their input and see if this is something that the city would support, the citizens and the city to move forward with. So I'll answer any questions. I know Amy's kind of been a part of that informal committee, so is City Administrator Brimseth. So if you have any specific questions, we'd be more than happy to hopefully answer those.
So this is a feasibility study for something that the project that the city would take on?
No,
Okay,
not necessarily, no.
okay.
You want to address that?
Sure.
Chairman, Councilmember Thompson, to your question on, if this ultimately would be a city project, and that is an unknown component. There are, likely the city would be a partner in some shape, but this is really the starting point to understand what is the desire of the community as a whole, looking at a regional perspective of what's here, what's available from other aquatic facilities, and understanding what's the capacity, what would be, is it indoor, is it outdoor, is it diving, is it, what are the desired amenities, and working with the YMCA, the school district, and others who would potentially be interested partners in this facility. So I think that's a to be determined piece. The point of the city having a pool of funds already set aside for this type is why the city would be undertaking the feasibility study itself.
Okay.
Just one thing to add to, and Amy had alluded to it, but we've been in conjunction with the Y and the school district. This certainly wouldn't be the intent to compete with, what they already have in place and what they're planning on doing going in the future. It's more or less to kind of partner with them, and we don't know the scope of what that partnership looks like yet, but this study would help us understand what the community wants, what the community is willing to support, and come up, also in here is a 5-year proposal of whatever that would look like, what operating costs we'd be looking at, so we kind of get a pro forma on how does the funding partner with it. between the entities. So it's really base groundwork to kind of get an idea of, to get this up and off the ground.
I would just note, there is some funding, there are some monies available, I think you've noted that, for the committee to work with, right? 20,000 or 25,000 or something that was given specifically for that purpose. So feasibility, yeah.
Is that, Bill, is there that money tied up for that? Could you answer that?
Yeah, it's within our general fund balance right now, so if you go forward with this, I would recommend you add to any motion with that, carry that forward from the prior fund balance. What had happened, I don't know if it was like 10 years ago when we went through the whole aquatic study, and we had raised $40,000 to do that feasibility study, got halfway through that, and the council put a stop to that. So the donor of that other 20,000 didn't want that back at that time. They said, just hold that. So that's what we've got, the 20,000 in the general fund balance. And like I do with other housekeeping items, I'd ask you to carry that forward so we could apply that to the commissioner's budget then to do that study.
Do you have a question?
The only reason I bring it up is I made it clear when I ran that a lot of the projects that the city's taken on, I believe they need to slow down on. And the big thing is until the RTC is taken care of, we're dealing with the library, we're dealing with several other things, and I just can't see jumping into one more thing. And this is the reason why I ask, because there's a lot of people I talk to, that's the top thing on their priority, is getting that thing done. And until then, I mean, it could come down on us at any time. We can't have that many projects going at the same time. You got to get one done and go to the next.
I think that's a good comment. I'd only caution us that if anyone's flown on an airplane, you notice that they have pre-takeoff regulations and people line up and they get in line, they queue up. We've got a number of items on the city agenda we queue up for. Doesn't mean we're going to do them, but since there's money there, I don't think it's against that principle of taking care of it, and I don't disagree with that.
Well, I'm willing to look at it, like I
So-
said, I'm willing to get things started in that aspect, but I wouldn't be willing to jump on board on anything until the other
Duly
stuff is
noted.
done.
Rod?
Yep.
There's two proposals, did you say, Justin?
If I may, we had entertained another proposal, and the individual came in and I guess the group, the proposals weren't exactly the same in terms of what we were really trying to get out of the proposal. The other individual came in and kind of said, what do you guys want? Tell me your guys' needs, and I'll, do a design for you and do a pro forma of operating costs and so on. So I don't think the group felt comfortable going that route yet, because we don't know what that looks like. We need to hear. This proposal has an online feasibility study. It also has comments and feedbacks from the citizens. So this is kind of, to get it up and off the ground, this was the only proposal we had. The other one wasn't compared to it in terms of the actual, the proposal itself, the nuts and bolts of it. So,
Mr. Chair, so it's a $10,500 plus the $800 travel expense, is that what I'm reading?
not to exceed, yeah, on that back page, you'll see complete the above scope of work for section 1.01 for a fixed amount of 10.5 plus an estimated $800 for travel. So that would be coming up. I think they're headquartered in Illinois. Is that right? Or
Delano, I believe.
Delano.
By the cities.
And then there's under part B and E, there's additional, if we want to go that route, but for the additional services that would be covered under that scope. So under E, it says if all three options listed in part 2.01 are accepted, we offer $500 deduct for a total fee of $15,000 plus travel and expenses not to exceed $800. That would be the full scope of everything. And I guess I don't know if Amy has a recommendation on which part we should or shouldn't take, but
Chair, council members, I would recommend certainly looking at add-on B of additional services, which includes that online survey, and then also the 3D renderings of a concept and that 5-year pro forma. Those are all included as options. So I would suggest adding those, because those I think are key to helping with the decision making. And just one other item to note, as Justin mentioned, has been a fairly informal group. It came out of Forward Fergus Falls as a priority item for discussion in 2016, and so that kind of brought it up to an additional level of conversation. But as noted in the scope of work, there would be a committee formed around this, and it's not assumed that those folks who have been meeting would be the only members of the committee, and so I would suggest if this does move forward, that we put out a request for people to express interest in serving on this and keeping it to a reasonable number, because there is that balance of it, but then having that appointed by the city council as far as a actual committee that would work on this should it move forward.
Jim?
Mr. Chair, I could see something like this working if we had this put together kind of like we do with the arena, where we have the school involved, we have the city involved, we have the hockey association involved, and the figure skaters involved, and all four put money in for the expenses. I'm not sure where the initial funding would come from on it, but to run it would work good with something if we had other entities besides the city that would support this.
So making sure there's support, or there's input from all those groups, that they're involved and represented is what you're saying?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's wise.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
We still have the question before us, or do we?
I want to add
yeah.
a couple more questions on that.
Yep.
How many years ago was that last study we had? Did we, the council make it?
2016 is when it started, carried into 2017, I'm sorry, 2006 into 2007, and then just kind
So
of.
it's been 10 years. And so, and we have the $20,000 for that study. That's the thing I wanted it there for, and I think it's time we should move ahead with that, so.
Okay.
You use that money, might as well try it out and see.
Yeah, and the council's gonna have to address this too, but,
Right.
so, I think it's, you ready for the question?
Well, I think that was a motion, wasn't it?
I don't think we have a motion.
I'll make it a motion, we move ahead to look at the feasibility of the feasibility study with the funds coming from the 20,000, whatever we have
In the general
in the general fund.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Okay,
One thing I just want to know.
is that gonna go on the discussion then?
I think it should.
Should be
Yeah, we
open.
can put it on the-
And
One thing
Justin,
to
are you
note-
gonna introduce some of that?
One thing to note
for us?
too is, that group for, or not Fort Fergus Falls, but the downtown riverfront master plan, I mean, this is, I think, a good time for that mechanism to cohesively work together to see how we implement that in. And to your point, it's, we'll find out from the citizens where this falls as far as priorities and funding and all those other things, but just want to get some input, and this is a way to do it and get an actual feasibility study on making it work. So it might be something that we defer for some time, but at least we'll have that document, so.
Good, okay. Last item, snow policy. We've had some questions, some discussions among staff on the policy that we presently have, which is an emergency policy. And the idea here is to raise the issue, is our policy sufficient? Is it cost effective? And does it benefit the city to the extent we want it to, whether it's the downtown or the arterials? So you have in your packet, if you've read it, some of the facts, questions, whatever. This is just introducing it, and I'm not sure how much we have to get into it. I think it's something that has to be done in concert with our Public Works Director, et cetera, and Rob, and the practical side of this thing. And I just ask if Rob or Len have any comments or questions to speak to this from your perspective. You're dealing with snow now, so good time to talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The snow policy that we do have in place, it's been in effect for many years. The actual parking policy that you referred to, that's what we have as an emergency part of our ordinance. We can impose parking restrictions as an emergency measure to take care of snow removal. I don't know that that's been utilized ever, but what we'd like to look at maybe is, just as the memo noted, eliminating on-street parking for a certain number of months. And then, yeah, we'd have to definitely get a committee together to figure out what we're gonna do with that on-street parking then, because they're gonna have to go somewhere. But it would make it more efficient for the initial operation for snow removal. But then, again, looking at the secondary effects, we'd have to go back and remove snow out of the parking lots that they parked in. So I think it does need to be looked at, and maybe we can find some minutes. I guess this has been hashed around in the past too, and see what the outcome of that discussion was.
Mr. Chair.
Can I make a clarification on
Sure.
that? Yeah,
I was-
and then ask the question. The clarification was, I think that right now we allow 24-hour or overnight parking downtown, is that correct?
Right.
And so what this would do in effect is to take away that 24-hour parking downtown and allow the crews to get in there. And the rationale was that there is a cost to putting out those little signs that they put out 12 hours ahead, is it, or 8 hours?
24.
24 hours ahead. And then asking everyone to move on every event. Huh?
12 hours.
12 hours, yeah, 12 hours. And so the cost basically is about $525, I think, for 2 people in a vehicle, and then they have to pick them up. So every time we're spending $525, you could say extra over what we would spend if we moved the 24-hour parking option from October till May, let's say. Does that make, that's just clarifying that, so.
Mine was just gonna say, we talked about at midnight to 6 o'clock in the morning, no parking at all, in the winter, I guess is what we were thinking, and I'm in favor of that. We've talked about this before in years past, and
Yep.
and we definitely, when you look at downtown, what a mess it is, it's something we should move ahead with. But like I said, we're gonna go through some committees.
Right. Okay, so the other items on here that are related to that, which, so if you've read it, you know, but one of the things is that we have on the city lots, rental spaces. So city lots are, some of them are percentage-wise divided up so it can be rented by private parties. But those lot spaces are allowed to park a trailer there or whatever for an undetermined amount of time or up till the extent of their lease, as I understand. So they could park it for 2 months, right, without moving it. That also could present problems in removing from the lots, snow from the lots. So this is an attending thing, but then in that case, we could make a case for a certain parking limit on those lots during, 24 hours in the wintertime, whatever, so that we can get at the snow, they can move it. So that's part of this. And I think this is something that, again, the council has to see. If there's anything else you want to address on here, raise questions now. Otherwise, I think we'll just pass that along to the council if we have that recommendation.
I would like to move to the next meeting, because to give guys some time to maybe look at it a little bit more closer, or,
Okay.
I think that would be good. This next meeting's been pretty busy.
So the
right?
February meeting?
February, first meeting in February?
Yeah.
Council meeting or
First,
committee
council
meeting?
or committee?
Council?
Probably the council, I would think. Just
February
kinda put
7th?
them to them.
Or
Yeah,
February
let's
6th?
just pass this
February
along to the
6th?
council. They have time to look at it. Is that all right? Dan?
The 6th?
Yep.
The intention, excuse me, Mr. Sheriff, if I may, the intention is not to have this in place by the end of this season, just based on the time that it takes to pass an ordinance anyway, so it's certainly from a timing standpoint, that'd be fine. This would be in place for the 2018 season if we were to move forward.
Okay, do we have a second? Did you?
I'll
move?
second that, Your Honor.
Okay, and then this would go to the February 6th, not the consent agenda, but discussion.
Yep.
Okay, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay, motion carries. I don't believe any other business, so at this time, there's announcements here. Most city facilities closed for Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Refuse and recycling routes will be affected. January 17th, which is Tuesday, correct, Lynn? Council meeting at 5:30. And February 1st, Finance and Personnel committee meeting at noon. Any other announcements we need to make? Okay, thank you for attendance and discussion. Meeting adjourned.